Is it just for the blade though, Dad, or like if you get off the seat, the whole thing turns off?
If you put the brake on and lock it, then it won't. You can get off and it won't.
So, there's a lock for the brake?
Yeah, just push it down and then lift this up.
Okay, and then you can get off.
And then when you go,
Gotcha. Connor wouldn't approve of all those safety features.
well, I know.
So I'm at my parents' house today in good old Minnesota for just a little trip, and I was gonna help my dad get some fertilizer put down onto his yard. So today I'm gonna go through just a couple little things that he is dealing with. So there's a pretty large area here, about 3/4 of an acre of grass. There's a lot of challenges with that. Today I actually get to mow again here, which I haven't done since I was a kid, and that's gonna obviously be fun to start with that. And then we'll go through some other stuff along the way. I'd really forgotten how much I love mowing wide open spaces. This thing takes me back. I don't think I've mowed here since, oh man, probably when I was at the end of high school or so. So it's been quite a while, but it seems just like riding a bike as usual. My dad does have a better mower than we had when I was a kid, I think a little bit here, but it's a nice machine and it cuts well. So I'm gonna try to finish the back section, which is just big wide open space of going back and forth. I'm not getting a whole lot of great stripes out of anything today. The grass isn't super thick. It could use a little work on that part of it, but that's kind of what I'm going to be helping with, or at least attempting to get some things going back on the yard. There hasn't been fertilizer on it for a little while. So that's kind of the plan today, and I'm just gonna continue mowing. Mowing at about 2 3/4 today, and it gives it a nice flat look. So although we don't have a lot of stripes going on, there is kind of a nice flat look there, and everything looks nice and clean. So you can see this big open section here. This is what we kind of called the ball field area back when I was a kid, because it's big enough to pretty much play a whole game here, and that was the fun part about also mowing it, was trying to get some nice stripes. I never really had a striping kit on our mower, but at least I could go back and forth and get kind of a nice even look across this big open area. So that was always fun, and today it kind of takes me back as to doing that back when I was a kid and really finding my love of mowing out in this section right here. Now this whole yard is Kentucky bluegrass, and it's the original yard that was planted in the late 80s, so you know, it's not some of the newer bluegrasses by any means, but it has adapted pretty well to different conditions. As I'm standing right here, you'll see that there's a lot of shade from these maple trees. Of course, it's not super thick through this section by any means, but honestly, it's nice and green through here. These trees have obviously grown a lot since I was a kid, but the grass has honestly adapted pretty well to the shade, except for just right up against the house, which is always a difficult part because there's really no sun happening over here on the north side. So you can see some of the areas hardest hit by drought, just like the same thing that happened into my yard last summer that I just fixed behind my fence line. So of course there's no irrigation out here, it's just natural rainfall, which usually in the summertime is okay because it might get dry and dormant for a little while, but as soon as you get that rain back to it and the fall weather hits and everything bounces back. But last year was kind of extreme on the amount of time that there was no rainfall. So you see a lot of this stuff that died off in here, and unfortunately that's not going to come back. And also, unfortunately, until you kind of get this stuff removed through here, or it just disintegrates over time, it's really kind of keeping the grass fairly thin in these sections. So if we could do a dethatching, that would help a lot to kind of revive everything and get it removed out of here. But it's a large project on a large property like this. I also broke some cardinal rules today with, you know, little clippings on the yard. The front yard was mowing pretty well at that height, but some of this section, there's a few low-lying areas that get more water than others, and it will tend to grow up in those sections. And then Just a little bit of clippings on here, but no big deal. I think my dad needs to get a striping kit for this section, and now I know he's gonna say, oh, it's not worth it, I don't need to do that, but maybe I'll just get one for him anyway and he doesn't need to know about it. Then I'll come back and mow some sweet stripes back here. I definitely didn't do the greatest on straight lines today. I'm pretty out of practice with that. It's kind of bumpy out here too. For those of you that have bigger yards, you know that, especially with all the earthworms that happens in our soils here, and just the fact that over time the freeze and thaw cycles and all that happens here in winter time, it does get kind of bumpy, but it's just sort of what you have to deal with on a larger property. I will say one thing that really excites me about mowing here is the idea of what's coming up at our property and how much space I'm going to be able to have to do different things. I don't want a massive lawn that I'm not going to be able to really care for well, but I do want some open areas where I can really throw down some awesome stripes. And just today I remembered what it was like to really enjoy some open field mowing where there's not a whole lot of stuff in the way, and you just kind of sit on the mower, enjoy the moment, kind of get your mind away from everything else. So it's gonna be fun. Because I came all the way here and bought my dad a spreader so he can have a pull behind spreader. He's never had a pull behind spreader on a yard like this. I know it's crazy, but he hasn't. I bought him one for Christmas so that I could come here, help him put down some crabgrass prevention and a little fertilizer, and just kind of help him learn the actual spreader so that he feels comfortable with it. So we get working on it, and you know, I'm just amazingly awesome at looking at instructions and putting things together. Not true at all. So get from about 2 steps to the end, a little guide that actually opens and closes the fertilizer hopper. The piece that came with it was wrong. So now I have to kind of punt on that. We're borrowing one to just get this done today, but that was just a disappointment that I couldn't get that done because we went through all of the work of putting it together, except we had a wrong piece. So unfortunately, that's just kind of how it goes sometimes, but live and learn. Probably should put things together before you drive 4.5 hours to go do something and then realize that your machinery isn't gonna be working. So we need to make sure this is off, which should be all the way down. Now let's look at the bag and see. All right, let's see. This is Earthway. It says setting at 12. All right, Dad, so
Okay, what do we got?
it says around a setting of 12, like right there. Then if you tighten this, it should just give us the...
That look right? Or?
Yeah, that looks about right. The tough part is, you know, keeping yourself kind of steady as far as speed goes, but let's try starting it and then like moving, and I'll turn it on back here to see if it's flowing out fairly well.
Okay.
So that worked pretty well. Got some pre-emergent down now. You might be thinking to yourself, why are you just putting pre-emergent down? This is Minnesota, folks. It's cold here. So it's just now starting to get somewhat warm, but we've been kind of experiencing the same thing in Iowa. We're usually about 2 weeks or so ahead of where they are at here. So usually warms up about 2 weeks earlier there and stays a little warmer 2 weeks later where I live. So got all that done, so much easier than using a broadcast spreader. I don't know what my dad was thinking for all this time, but sometimes you need somebody to buy you something apparently in order for you to change. So that's it for the lawn today. I know it's going to get a lot better after just a fertilizer application. My dad had a couple spots over in the front where there was a few damaged spots from winter, and he put some fertilizer down on those. And they are already blazing green, so I know this is gonna look good. It's just gonna take a little time to get things back going after not fertilizing for a little while. I hope you enjoyed the video today. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. 1976 Trans Am. I wanted to film a whole segment on my dad's car when I was home this time, but I didn't get everything done in the time frame allowed. So later this season, I hope to go back and film a whole segment on how this car kind of came to be, how my dad bought it brand new back in '76, and still has it to this day with only 40,000 miles on it. So there's a story there that I've always wanted to tell. This car has been in my life the entire time since he bought it before I was born. So it's a very special vehicle to me. We don't get to drive it very often. I've actually only driven it probably less than 10 miles total in my entire lifetime. I want to tell you that whole story, but today just enjoy a few sights and sounds of this amazing car. Steering is a lot different. I've really only driven this like 2 or 3 times, honestly.
I have ridden in it one other time with you. And that was, I'm not even sure we were married yet.